Okay, so we're live. Yeah, so I saw Gio over kind of messing around on the page where I had posted the link to get in here. So that was 10 or 15 minutes ago. So I thought she was, on her way in. But maybe not. I haven't heard from anybody else. So I just filibuster a little bit to see what happens. But yeah, there's one more essay in this section. It's a little essay by Christos called "No Rock Scorns Me as Whore."
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it goes into the appendixes, and the first one, I guess, is from the first edition. I'm not sure. Forward to the second edition. So it's got stuff like that.
But it doesn't have the forward to the first edition, which is what I have.
Right. So I guess if you can prepare something around that, I'll work with the other pieces.
Okay, let me make a note.
They're pretty short, actually. Yeah. So, well, I also don't want to hold you up since you have to leave at what, 7?
Mm-hmm. I have a whole hour with you. I want every minute of it.
Yeah.
I want every minute.
I'm thinking maybe we should go ahead and get started, and hopefully others will join us and do it like that. So is that all right?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we want to send a message or something that we're here. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just go on Facebook and see if anybody's on Facebook.
Okay.
And then we can start.
Okay.
Oh, there's Leonie.
Oh, here's Gio.
So I'll send a message to Leonie.
Leonie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Leonie and Nicole. Hey, Gio.
Hey, ladies. What's up? How are you doing?
Gio. Good.
What's the name
How are you?
What's the name of this?
Here's Nicole.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, cool.
StreamYard. Nicole. StreamYard. So I guess it's just Leonie. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about Vanita. I haven't talked to her, but whenever she comes early, so I'm gonna guess that she's not coming. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, you all. Can you hear me?
Hey.
Can you hear us, Nicole?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Good to see you guys.
You too.
So, all right. So we were just going to go ahead and get started. Kim needs to leave at 7. So I wanted to let her get in. There's someone named Simone talking to us in our chat room. Can you all? Let me.
Oh, I think
I can show it.
Hi, Simone.
Hi, Simone.
Hi, Simone.
Cool.
She saw our listing on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Simone. If you ever want to join the conversation, let us know. So let's go ahead and get started. Can enjoy Kim. She can be here. So we don't have an official facilitator tonight. I guess I will just go ahead and say welcome to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. Welcome, Simone. Thanks for joining us. We are, of course, reading this bridge called My Back, the 4th edition. This bridge called My Back, Writings by Radical Women of Color by Cherríe Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. And all of us have this 4th edition except Kim, who has the original 1981 version. This 4th edition was published in 2015. And before you guys got here, Kim and I were just talking about, she's supposed to facilitate next week. A lot of most of the readings next week are related to the forewords and the afterwords to the various editions. So Kim is going to put together some discussion points on the 1st edition, and the rest of us can, come with questions we might have or comments we might have on the rest of it, the pieces that we have. Next week, Simone is actually our last week discussing this book. We've been at it since Malcolm's birthday on May 9th. And we meet every Tuesday at 6 p.m. And you found us on Facebook. That's the perfect place to look for our notices. But we also house video archive on YouTube. And this is the 13th book. We're in session 13. So this is the 13th book that we are reading together publicly. And normally take a couple of weeks or a few weeks off between books. So I imagine we will do that after next, and then we'll figure out the next thing we want to read, come back and do it all over again. Normally we share the facilitation responsibilities, which involves writing a short summary of the week's readings. We read about 25 to 30 or so pages per week. And then the facilitator writes a summary, generates a few questions, and facilitates the discussion for that week. Occasionally, like tonight, we don't have a particular facilitator, and when that happens, then all of us just kind of go through the week's reading materials and identify passages that resonated with us and start a discussion on those passages. So that's where we are. I'm Michelle Odom, and I'm located in Brooklyn, New York. Next.
Hi, I'm Kim, and here's my book, and it's kind of seen better days at this point. And I'm also in New York.
All right. Who's next?
Okay, I'm Georgette.
We have two more.
Excuse me, Michelle. Leonie is asking if you could add her.
Oh, cool. She's coming. Okay, I'm Georgette. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. Here's my book. Okay.
There she is.
Right.
Floor.
Yay, Leonie.
Hey,
Thank you,
Leonie.
Bridget. Hey, Leonie.
Hello, everybody.
I missed you, Georgette. Let's do you again.
Okay. I'm Georgette, and I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, and here's my book.
All right. And Nicole?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Wilson, joining from Houston, Texas. And oh my gosh, this has been an amazing.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Simone is on Staten Island. All right.
Okay.
And Leonie, one thing I don't like about this stream that we're using, Leonie, is that it gives you a row of people. It only holds 4 people. And as you see them on this one row, you add them to the stream. And then if there are more than 4 people, they go below. But even with my screen maximized, I'm trying to keep you out. You did the right thing. I'm glad Kim got your message. Who are you, Leonie?
My name is Leonie Smith. Well, hello to everybody.
Hey,
I have
Leonie.
my book here.
Hi.
And I'm joining you from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
All right. I watched your program, Leonie, on Karen.
Oh, you watched that?
Karen, that was really good.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah. Did you all? Yeah.
I did see it. I did. I thought it was a very humane way of approaching
If
and
you all get
analyzing.
that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing what happens to our brains when we're in distress. So it was nice to get that layer.
Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to a program today by Chris Hayes. Well, he does a podcast called Why Is This Happening? And he was interviewing this man who was a former New York City police officer. And then when he ended up with master's degrees and a doctorate in philosophy. And he's a really interesting character. And he used to live in Brooklyn, and then he moved out to some suburban area. But he was talking a lot about the physiology that goes on when you're in a fight with somebody, and how that kind of influences the way things go. And he was talking about how in the military, they're specifically trained around how to handle those, but they don't do it in the police departments. Kind of remind the analysis that was happening in your program around the Karen personality.
Okay.
And there are some women named Karen who are asking people to stop calling them calling people Karens. So that's another. Yeah. So so there are 5 essays.
Mm-hmm.
There are 5 essays in tonight's conversation, and I just kind of summarized them a little bit on the agenda. But I wanted to say on Darnella, did anybody have anything they wanted to say about Darnella? I forgot to do that last week. No.
No updates.
All right, well, let's in.
Oh, Michelle, you're freezing.
While we try to recover Michelle, I could tell that the fundraiser, the GoFundMe for Darnella is at $527,581.
Wow.
That's good.
So, hopefully getting the assistance
Me?
she needs.
Mhm.
We're not hearing you very well, Michelle, unfortunately. We're not getting enough to understand what you're saying.
And GoFundMe gets like 20% or 10% or something like that.
I don't think it's that high.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I need to find that out, Kim. That's a good question. I know when you donate through GoFundMe, they'll ask, like, do you want to make a donation? But yeah, that's a great question. I'll find out and have that information for our next meeting. I'm not sure. Does anyone know?
No, I just
Yeah,
know
I'll
when you
find
make a donation, they deduct a fee from you, from the person who donates, but I don't
Right.
think it's like the entire,
It says the
that's where they
standard.
get their money from.
It says the standard is 2.9%.
oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
They have to get their money. Oh, Simone said Becky's upset too.
Yes. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, much better. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just have a slow connection. It's becoming the main existence. Okay, so who wants to start us off on talking about one of the essays?
Oh, I lost my place. I'm sorry. Well, we could start with number one. I mean, looking at the Combahee River Collective, a Black Feminist Statement. I mean, I certainly don't mind us going in kind of sequential order, if you guys would like. But there's so many ironies and complexities that we are still uncovering and recovering and kind of turning over from this composition. First and foremost, just how revolutionary their coming together, their gathering, their congregating is and was. It is still not lost on me that in this age of protest, right, that we've just kind of all lived through and are living through currently, that the mayor in New York, the First Family, and Cherríe Moraga, who is a pivotal voice here as well in the Combahee River Collective, who's now in, sharing Gracie Mansion with her husband and children. And sometimes I've had moments where I thought, how did you go from Combahee to this? And certainly I'm not saying everything has been problematic, but definitely I think when folks took to the streets and protests, we witnessed some problematic events unfolding, like, that, of course, I mean, her husband is the mayor, but she certainly has a sphere of influence as the kind of quote unquote first lady there, the first family, I guess, of the city. So, yeah, so I just picked up on that irony, right? That it does not take away from how revolutionary the writing is. But to be specific, I guess I'm just thinking through like how this entire section spoke to what we know today as intersectionality and how the Combahee River Collective had already, kind of thought through these kinds of interlocking oppressions, right? And so it makes me think about that idea that nothing is new, right? Nothing's new. But if we just kind of go to the genesis of contemporary Black feminism, and just the way, I love the ways that they describe this as a necessity. It was necessary for their survival, that they came together, that they congregated, that they were thinking together, studying together, writing together. And I thought it was just so powerful that they named this as, to later in the essay, a study group. I just wanted to, I guess, kind of ask you all if we could think through, what did this do for you in, reading this again, in 2020? What thoughts? What did it expand something for you? It's such a beautiful, critical, radical offering, and I just wanted to know what has this offering meant for you personally or professionally, and in sisterhood and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know that was kind of long, y'all. Sorry.
No, that's cool. Well, I think the most powerful. I'm sorry, Michelle. You want to go? Okay, I was going to say.
No, go ahead, Georgette.
Okay, I was going to say that the most powerful and bittersweet moment was when the statement on page 215 that involves Black women are at the bottom, and you have to fight the world. And for us to be free, everybody else has to be free too. And it seems like an almost Herculean, impossible task, because you're fighting class and sex and politics and socioeconomics and, all these isms, and it's thrown in front of us to impede any progress. And not only externally, but internally too, within the organizations. Everyone has their own priority. And there's just the term of socialism, right? That they're embracing the positive aspects of socialism. But when you even mention that word, when you even come close to these terms, most people's minds close down because they have an image of what this means, because they don't want equality, because they feel there's a fear that your equality means you're taking something from me because I'm comfortable where I am. And until, I think why we keep going back over these same issues, we see them in different clothes today, but it's the same issues, is because of that basic fear that if I allow you to have equality of opportunity to express yourself and be the best that you can imagine being, then I am somehow inherently losing something if I give you that opportunity to self-actualize. And I think that's where we keep coming back to that same problem. How do you get past that fear, of allowing people to just live, people over profits?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Beautiful.
It's a real fear, Georgette, because you're going to have to breastfeed your own children and clean your own house. And, it's a real fear. You may have to do something for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not so much. I guess it's not so much that the state of mind is equality for everybody. Is that, well, wait a minute, if I don't have anybody that's doing all the dirty work, then I may have to do dirty work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I agree. I mean, I think exactly it. As long as we're comfortable with equality, then there's sort of this carrot out there that, maybe I can, be the next Oprah, you know. And I'd rather devote my life to trying to be the next Oprah than, take the risk of just having enough, And, this particular quote that's on page 215, if Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all the systems. And, and I think with all of the systems of oppression, there's this inequality. There's somebody that's very, very comfortable, and somebody that's very uncomfortable. And, and it does involve disrupting your comfort, as Kim was saying. You might mean you have to wash your own dishes, suckle your own babies. And, I'm thinking about one of those quotes that I used last week from the occupant White House, where he was talking, I think it's the one where he was telling us we were not going to tear down his statues. And he was talking about this destruction. They want to destroy our way of life. Well, yeah, because your way of life is killing me. But to say that out loud evokes a lot of fear.
Yeah, I like when they speak to Black feminist issues and projects. And it's just like, for me, that's just a never ending kind of like story, right? Because, and they speak of the pervasiveness, and it's because of the pervasiveness of the oppression. It is just, there's always a project, right? There's always something we have to respond to. There's always something for us to disrupt. There's always a way that we need to be speaking up and talking back. And just protest. It's just, a way of life. And so it is just so interesting for me to come back to this very pivotal text, to how folks who labor under the kind of notion, the awareness of Black feminism, who claim that as an identity, who believe in the tenets and the ethos of Black feminism. It's just, because I think the violence, the disrespect, it's quotidian, it's ritual, it's constant. And so the projects, it's like we it's kind of like closing one or placing a pen in one and moving to the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this comment from someone who's watching. I wanted to share it. It's from Simone Williamson, who's watching us now.
Share it.
I feel like Black women are the mothers to people with all the isms, so it's on us to defend and create space. Excellent point.
I agree with that.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah.
Wow.
It makes me think about what happens if this unique time that we're in terms of people seeing some of what we have been experiencing, if it turns out to be sustained and leads to, the dismantling of systems, what will our role be in the rebuilding of things differently, which both excites me and frightens me a little bit, because it's like, how much have we also been bent and shaped by oppression that we are divorced from the wisdom that comes from us, that's in our lineage. We recreate things in the image of what we're used to.
Good point, Leonie. Certainly.
I guess for me personally, I don't want to take responsibility for fixing something I didn't create. So either we're all in this, or I just can't see. So when you talk about this bridge called my back, it really, the future can't depend on this bridge called my back. I love being a part of it. I don't feel that we should be bystanders, but I'd be goddamn if I'm going to keep breastfeeding everybody. It feels like the same circle, and I know that there are different levels and complexities to what we're talking about, but I'm finding that too many other kind of people are now want to talk to me, and I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be your sounding board. I don't want to be anything except you don't insult me. So I think I may need to take a step up or two before I get to a level where I'm like, yeah, we can do this. Let's do it. Let's get it done. I'm not there yet.
Well, that's interesting, because of everything that's going on. I found myself several times in situations where I've had to hold care for other people's ignorance because they have not either had time or found it necessary to understand the history of our country or the world, and the plight of the person who you wave to, when you're passing by, or the mailman who looks different than you. And so now you must, gently instruct them, okay, well, the reason why somebody said that to you, that you had white privilege, was because of this. And don't take it personally, but just know the history of what you represent as your body is that, So and while I understand how you feel, Kim, you feel like, well, where have you motherfuckers been all this time? Okay. You ain't been paying attention. But, we have a society where the pre-digested information is what is promoted. So, and intellectual curiosity is not. So, and you don't have time unless you make time, because it's important to your survival immediately, right? That is an immediate need for you to have this information so you can process the rest of the things that are occurring in the world. And that's how they've taught us how to operate. We don't have, generally, we're not teaching our children to hold care, which is a wonderful term that Leonie brought to my world. Thank you so much. Holding the whole image of that, holding care for somebody else, and empathy, emotional intelligence, all these words and ideals that will be required to repair the damage. You destroy something to make space to build it up. And I love what Simone said about, that defending and creating space. As the Black woman, as the mother of the human race, we must create. And then, as it was mentioned in the text, well, we are also required to destroy, just like Mother Earth. The hurricane, the reason why the southern states pollution is such is because of the weather. If you do not allow the hurricane to come and wash out, you know, the low-lying lands, wash all that filth out and replenish the ecosystem, you got a mess. And so it's destruction that creates the space for new life. And people, they're going to have to wrap their minds around it. You got to let it go. If you want to live a better life, you've got to let what you think is so something that you can't live without. What is the value of it? You must let it go. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Thank you, Georgette, and thank you, Leonie, holding space and empathy and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we're trying to be positive. We're not trying to burn anything down.
I don't know why y'all invited me.
because there's a place for that spirit, that energy, that raw energy. That's why.
Okay, well, if we would want to look at the second one, the Welder, man, isn't she a beautiful
I just wanted
poet?
to say on this one that
go ahead, Michelle.
I just also felt just really a lot of gratitude for these women. You know, like I told you, I remember, you know, I was about 21 when this book came out. And, you know, and I remember encountering some of these people. I haven't told you, Kim, but I used to have the 1981 version of this book. And I didn't get around reading it like you. You know, it was one of the books that was on my shelf that, you know, followed me around from state to state until I ultimately lost my book. But I remember encountering some of these writers in other ways, and just, you know, really feeling connected to their site. But as I'm reading this now, the gratitude I'm feeling is, you know, I wonder if they weren't lesbians. I feel like you almost had to be a lesbian to get to this level of revolutionary thinking in that era. And so when they talk about the isolation of Black women and they talk about the resistance that they encountered from Black women and men, you know, I remember all of that resistance very clearly. And so I'm just grateful that, you know, they were in a position where they were able to forge ahead and do this kind of work, kind of groundwork. And when the rest of us could catch up, you know, okay. And, you know, and I think that's just kind of how things continue to be, that when you have sight around something, you just need to put it out there, and others will come to it when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. Wow.
I think that it just brings to mind, I remember my mother in this time, and how a lot of the friends that she had in the movement were lesbians. And my father hated it, but, you know, he wasn't in the movement, so, you know, it didn't matter. But I just think that there is this level of a conversation between how the sisterhood works between straight Black women and gay, lesbian Black women, and where are we allies and where are we not? And I think I love looking in the mirror. I enjoy this book, and I think it's wonderful. And I think I'm hoping that at some point we start to look more at, and this book does say that, it talks about that fear. It says that the one thing that we have to recover from is fear. I have to look and see what page that's on. But I just think that there's this fear between us on so many different levels, internally, fear of how we were raised as women, fear of the man in our house, and so I just think that when Nicole was saying we're fighting on so many levels, first you look at, the racism, and then you look at the sexism and the classism and the poverty, and it's just like, I'm tired. You just go, wow. But I do think that each one needs to be explored.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the man of the house, that part, I was just like, huh? That the man is the leader. And, when you looked at a lot of these movements, we were there. And I think that's a hard thing to deal with, is that if you are a straight Black woman and you do want to be in relationship, sometimes the feminism turns people off and they run to the hills. The fact that I know how to get myself across the street, I know how to open my own door. It's like this delicate balance where, boy, it's just like, what day is it and who am I fighting?
Right. And to add to that,
Right.
Kim, I think it's because of, of also the, patriarchy, right? And so this way that, the male always has to be kind of centered. And so it's so interesting when we talk about lesbianism as we understood with the author, Nicole, is it Nicole Dennis?
Dennis Ben.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the gaze, like we clearly could see the gaze she utilized and employed in her writing, right? And she was definitely not centering a heterosexual or heterosexist gaze, and she definitely not centering, a gaze rooted in patriarchy. And so it is not about, created for male consumption, right? And it's so linked to capitalism, right? Because, male production for male consumption, or when we think about certain beauty products and so on and so forth, which I'm not demonizing to her, his, their own, but I'm just saying, like, it's all about, being more attractive, or, in some ways still pulling in this notion of male consumption. So yeah, I think when that's decentered, and it's like, which Luisah Teish talks about in her piece with Gloria Anzaldúa, when she's like, well, heck no. I mean, the kind of spirituality that I practice, she's naming a goddess. She's talking about, God as androgynous. She speaks to, just these ways that women are coming together and they could be powerful in these rituals, and that they don't have to, like there's like not a concern about, oh, you got to make, the man of the church or the temple or you're going to offend this male. And so when we get to that, I think that's one way that I'm going to be able to assess my own freedom. Everything else is just liminal, right? And that's why I think too, people are creating these alternative spaces where everything that technology kind of, it's just this beautiful and then this kind of devastating thing. But folks are using technology to create their alternative spaces, to have, different voices. So we're not having to, bow down to, the patriarchy and patriarchal ethos and persuasions and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to read Simone Smith. Let me put it up there. There it is. It says, I personally have to remind myself of the fertility of shit happening. I am currently what I can plant. My own of scorched earth.
Man, that's poetic, Simone. I love that.
I love it.
That's poetic, right?
Yes.
I defer to our poet here, but it sounded poetic to me.
Oh, it sounds poetic to me too. That damn good poetry.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And I think that kind of the thread that kind of carries through to today is that these pages, oh my God, I can't talk. These pages show us where Black women were really beginning to center themselves. And today, what we have are say her name, and this questioning of, why is it that we can still invest so much energy when a Black man is killed, but it still doesn't evoke the same kind of mass response when it happens to a Black woman. But to me, that is the same thread of learning how to center ourselves, and the realization that unless we do it, it won't be done.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's also a place to step into like the interdependent part, because there's no reason why it is that a group of Black women couldn't organize. Say, for example, if there's a death of a Black woman, to actually make that trend on Twitter. It doesn't rely on a family member or a person. Like, it's something that that idea that like only the death of Black men trends is something that we actually can develop a response to. Like, it's possible, because that's the difference between now is that our collective voices can actually create something, can bring attention to something. And you don't just have to, as like jacked up as social media is, it's also a great place to make some noise.
True.
Right.
Go Leonie. Go Leonie.
Right.
Leonie for president.
Yes.
Saying it.
I think that's the conversation I want to have. I mean, yes.
No, go ahead.
Oh, am I muted? No, I'm good. I just think that's the conversation. I hear you, Leonie. I just think that's the conversation. Are we asking for permission to protect and highlight ourselves? Are we asking for permission to mourn in public? What is it that stops us from being our own advocates? And if anybody's out there for Black men, it's us too.
Yeah.
So some of this falls at our feet. So when you say that, I'm just like, yes, this is the thread that is so important. It's just as important as what Karen does. It's just as important as what White and men and Trump do. What is it that we need to do to deal with the fear? And I know that paralyzing fear because I've had it on occasion. But how do we decide that we are going to all step in one direction lockstep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just think that's the conversation, Leonie. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally doable.
Kim, do you want to start us off on another discussion before you have to leave?
I would. The thing that jumped out in this book for me and in the readings was there was one line about fear that I wish I had underlined it. It was just about how we come through this world as Black women with this fear. Yeah, it was just saying on page 222, we must always confront that which you fear. You gotta confront what you fear. You gain strength by that, you see. And there's a bit of magic there. So when I think about that paragraph, and then I move on to where we start looking at spirituality in the next section, I just thought it was so wonderful to start looking at. I know they were talking about using charms and things like that, but I just think that in order to deal with the amount of fear we must have, as tired as we are of so many different oppressions, that there is this spiritual element that needs to be front and center, and that can't be a spirituality of oppression. So I think each of us has to find our own path, whatever it is we have to do. I know I have an altar here in my house, and I'm developing more and more of a practice, but I really think that I need to have conversations between me and my ancestors and me and myself. And I just feel like until I get right with me, it doesn't make any sense for me to go out and fight Karen. I really have to find a way to make peace and balance my own spirit, and then start to clean my house. And as I clean my house, I can start looking at what's the next thing outside of the house. And I'm not trying to simplify anything. I know that the world's not going to wait for us to get our acts to the point where our cups are full. But it's got to be a priority to fill my own cup as I'm continuing to do this work. Otherwise, Karen's going to die at 80 and I'm going to die at 40.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah, the thing about the charms for me was that it just, it just reminded me of prayer, really. It just felt like, whatever you do to acknowledge a higher power, to speak to that higher power. This particular essay, Okay, Momma, Who the Hell Am I? The interview with Luisah Teish, the one I say is kind of mystical and magical. That's what it felt like to me. And I'm on page 223 in our version, where it says, I think at the bottom of the page, I think too that it's part of the balance that always goes on in nature. It's like technology, which is purely masculine, material, all about aggressive conquering power, ... has taken itself to the point of sleeping on the self-destruct button. And now it's as if Mother Goddess is coming in and saying, wait a minute, my son, hold it, boy. Now there are other things in life. Sounds like something I'd be saying to my son, right? But it's that had me thinking about, this kind of reset that we literally saw going on in nature when people were on lockdown, because of coronavirus. I mean, it's tricking. The birds were singing, the trees were laughing, the fish were swimming. It was like all of nature was rejoicing because they got a little bit of breathing room from the humans and all of our destructiveness. And so that's a lot of what I was feeling as I was going through this particular essay, that our voices, our intuition, our nature, women's nature, is really just so important to life. And when we're suppressed, it's not good. It's not good. Life is really out of balance.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
So true.
So the challenge then, I think, Michelle, is like how to tap into what power we have. And like, it's one thing for us because we have certain access to things, right? Like we have certain privileges. But, if you think about, the very people that we were talking about at the beginning who are like saddled with like work, like the kind of physical work that drains one, plus taking care of family, plus being in partnerships that may not be the most healthy and stuff. And so I think that is a way in which we can look at Black feminism in the 21st century when we're looking at shaping what's needed, is to not build it in the same way that Black feminism kind of exists today, but also it copies from the model that comes from white feminism, which is that it's built in the eye of, fairly comfortable, if not quite middle class Black people. It's like to build the movement from the perspective of those who have probably the most to say and need support to have their voice heard. So I'm thinking of those who are like working through jobs and, don't have a whole lot of resource in their life. Like that's part of the thing that I think about. That's part of the communities that I'm part of that are around focused on nonviolence, is that you think about interdependence. Like it's one thing to resource a woman who's like, like even like working class and like not super poverty. Oh, you're heading out, Kim?
Yeah, see you later.
But like, what about women who are really struggling with poverty to like build it for them, build our feminist movement, our Black feminist movement, so that it works for them, right? And do that through interdependence. Because unfortunately, in countries like the United States, the number of boots on the ground, terrible metaphor, but like, it really is important that like these protests are happening, that they're happening like every day, and that they're happening all across the country. So like it is time consuming and resource consuming for that to happen. But what does it take to support people who don't have access to those resources? How do we bring those resources to them so that they can actually shape the kind of feminism that does respond to not only Black women, but also other people of color and other isms?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's what these women were trying to get to. And, and that's why they were saying they pulled away from, what was it, the National Black Feminist Organization, because it was too bourgeois. but you can tell obviously from the writings that, this is still an intellectual class. And it's a real challenge. Just before I came into StreamYard, I saw a little thing on Facebook that had Hillary Clinton saying, no teacher should have to make a choice between her life and her livelihood, or her life and her children, or something like that. But whatever it was, my reaction was, yeah, but where was that conversation, when all the essential workers were being required to make those choices? And I agree, no teacher should have to risk her life in the middle of a global pandemic to go into a classroom because some asshole has said she should. But why did the meat packers have to go to work? All of these jobs that were deemed essential, and I know we could not have survived without some of those essential workers, taking the risk and doing that work through the worst of the pandemic, which, we've got a little lull going on in New York, so it's kind of a past tense for me. But I'm very aware every day, Nicole, when they report on Texas about, the situation that you're in down there, and what's going on now in so much of the country. But you don't hear a lot of conversation by white folks about what we can do to make the workplace safer for those Black essential workers. What kind of hazard pay and bonus and gratitude we can show to them. And so I don't know, I don't know what the answer is, but the differences in this moment are stark.
I would also add
Simone said,
oh.
No, go ahead. Go
ahead. I'm listening to her. Simone said what, Michelle?
Simone, yeah. Simone says, I love that you ladies are having these conversations, and I think virtual spaces are, for the moment, safe. So we should use them to collaborate. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that kind of also kind of links up with the point that I wanted to make as well. So I was thinking through how Luisah Teish says that, technology is so masculine and materialist and so forth. And then I think through, well, how would we define these various instructional technologies? So I think that is where I see a shade of femininity or more of a feminist, if you will, kind of ability for a feminist praxis to survive. But Michelle, I also would say, when you talked about, this is one of the things that I would like us to normalize, right? I had a friend on Facebook who made a comment, and then she's like, separating herself from the intellectuals. And I'm like, anybody who produces knowledge is an intellectual. It doesn't mean you have to have a degree. And I think we need to normalize that. I don't even, I know for so long we would use the term organic intellectuals, so you could kind of differentiate the folks with college degrees and without. But even I don't even buy that. People who produce knowledge are intellectuals. And I think, I think back to my grandmothers who didn't have, degree. They didn't have the opportunity structures in place. Even some women who have come of age with me who don't have the same opportunity. and neither have I had some of the opportunities other women. But I think all of us who produce knowledge, this practice of reading together, we are
Oh,
Uh-oh, you froze.
she froze, Miss Nicole.
So, well, I'm going to agree with Nicole while she gets unfrozen.
Me too. Because you know
Yeah.
what? There's more of the so-called organic intellectuals than there are the academic, and we pull on the history of the so-called organic intellectuals, which I agree there should not be a separation of statements of title. That's where we pull from our history from. That's where our understanding of feminism from. As much as I am enjoying reading this academic text, yeah, it's like that's not what has shaped my understanding of feminism. Only it's from people who have been putting ideas and knowledge out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, and that's what makes me want to do a group like this, that I always talk about everyday people, because I got very frustrated kind of watching what was happening in mass media, where, you know, certain people get plucked to be the spokespeople, and they seem to have a particular bent or background. And then when you're in scholarly environments, you know, it felt like to me the scholars were really having conversations with themselves. You know, they were, you know, career oriented or, you know, whatever it was, but they were not making an effort. It seemed, oh, let me bring Nicole back in. Oh.
Thank you.
Sorry, Nicole, I have to like pay attention. Leonie knows how to get my attention.
Okay.
But you know, it seemed to me that the scholars were really having you know, just talking to themselves, you know, not making an effort to talk in layman's language, not making an effort to be inclusive, but, you know, trying to show how erudite they are so that they can move up whatever ladder they're trying to move up. But meanwhile, the everyday people who rock the cradle, you know, raise the children, transmit the ideas, you know, I just feel very strongly that what we believe, because what we believe influences what we do, what we believe is extremely important. And that to me, the real scholars, the real intellectuals that I can respect are the ones that are helping everyday people to figure out how to articulate, how to get in touch with, you know, how to analyze their own life experiences so that, you know, you can move in productive ways toward change, revolutionary change. Mm-hmm. So Nicole, we were busy agreeing with you while you got stuck. So go on and finish your point.
Yeah, my internet just it's shady. Yeah, but good to hear. Yeah, I think we need to normalize, like, taking that term back. You know, so yeah, intellectuals, we're all that. We're producing knowledge. But I'm happy to hear the conversation.
Simone has left us. She said, thanks so much for including me in the conversation. Even though I didn't read the book, hopefully I'll catch you next week too. Bye. Bye, Simone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I talk loud. You notice you see me talking loud to her because I'm talking to writing instead of a person. It's like I think I'm talking to a deaf.
It's interesting to see the integration there. That was really cool. I like that, to see the integration of her writing. That's a kind of intimacy for me that I always think like, just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else do we have? Let me look at my notes. So this was just we had more, I think, mostly Black women's voices in this section.
Yes.
It was really, really highly, just very strong, especially Pat Parker's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, Pat. What's the name of the Black men with guns we talked about? No fucking around.
Yeah.
Group that we talked about last week, Nicole.
Yeah.
Pat Parker's voice reminded me of them, where she talks about, you may have to be ready to kill some family members. I was like, oh, Pat.
Yes, that's my Aquarius.
Yeah, but I did like the way the organization of the book, the organization of the sections, and how it led us to this point and brought us to this point where we're focused on, imperialism. And it just felt like it brought us right to this moment that we're in, where, of course, these same issues, these same interlocking issues need to be addressed. And so you point that this is a long-term process, that we really have to educate ourselves so that we're not falling into the same, co-optations that have derailed our movements in the past. I just thought it felt like was right where we need to be. So yeah. So this week I have fallen in love with two white women. Let me see their names. Sarah, oh God, I can't recall her last name. And Andrea Chalupa. And Sarah, it's something like Kenjian. But anyway, they do a podcast. I was telling Georgette about it. They do a podcast called Gaslit Nation. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's so wonderful.
I got through
just so wonderful.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah,
Sarah's on Twitter. I follow her on Twitter. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, I'm telling you, I spent like all day Saturday or something, just kind of catching up on some of the old episodes. And really what they're focused on, they're both journalists. And Sarah Kendzior.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah has a doctorate in archaeology, and both of them have focused their studies on authoritarian states. Andrea is from the Ukraine, and she's a filmmaker. And they just have this political moment that we're in really down to a science. The criminality of the Trump regime, and they just really go into it in a way that you're just not going to see on the regular news. Even with someone like Rachel Maddow, who I like a lot. But this is just a whole nother level of analysis and truth. And, you know, I get googly when I hear the truth. So,
yeah.
But listening to them, you know, just made me think about, like, you know, one of these essays talks about, I think it's the Pat Parker essay, talks about how, you know, we have to get to the point where the movement is being led by poor and working class people and women. And, you know, listening to them just really, you know, they're making the connections between how authoritarianism or kleptocracy took root in the Ukraine, how it plays out in some other countries, and how it's the same cast of characters that have taken hold of America. Yeah. And so it just made me, you know, think about the whole when and where I enter. And how interesting it is, you know, wherever you enter, that perspective that you bring to this battle that we're all fighting, but we're fighting it from different perspectives on different fronts. And we just don't always see what somebody else sees. And so it's fascinating to listen to them. Gaslit Nation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely following them. They are the parts that I was able to listen to before I was distracted were just, it was stuff you knew in your heart. But there they were laying out the connections of the various, you know, people in bed, you know, whole families scratching each other's back and covering each other's, you know, indiscretions and downright criminality, right?
Yeah.
So, like, wow. And people don't seem to
heard about it. I first heard about it, Georgette, you know, Georgette and I both listened to a program on Saturday night hosted by a friend of mine called Our Common Ground with Janice Graham. And Janice spent a lot of time in federal service, Justice Department. She's done all kinds of things. A very interesting person. But she's been hosting this blog talk radio program for, I don't know, close to 30 years. Very revolutionary minded. And so she retired recently from her federal position, but she was there for like the first couple of years of Trump administration. And so she really got to kind of see up front how that administration has really destroyed the federal government. And so she just kind of gives us that perspective. And, you know, and so when you wonder, how we can be in this place where, what are we up to, 137,000 dead now, where there's like no federal response whatsoever. When you want to try to understand what is going on here, because it just doesn't make any sense. But when you really wrap your hands around, this is a crime syndicate. That is what is going on. That is what is going on. And so having the expectation of a human reaction to the public health challenge that we're dealing with, we can't even have that. That's not even a reasonable expectation with this crew that we're talking about. So, that doesn't save any lives, but, I like to understand why I'm dying, I'd like to understand what it is that's killing me.
I understand that, Michelle. For sure.
Yeah. So I'm glad you started listening, Georgette. I hope you, Leonie, you and Nicole.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out an episode for sure. Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, follow her on Twitter. I know with Sarah, I know she says some very important things, and she had been like, putting these warnings out about this administration. So yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, before we go, I need a clarification just quickly. So you said that some of the sections Kim didn't have, so we were going to try to, I didn't quite catch, because remember last week, Michael was sick. So I didn't quite catch like what we decided about next week.
Kind of I guess a replay of tonight.
Oh, okay, cool.
Kim was supposed to facilitate next week, but what I just realized is she can't really do much of that, because most of the readings for next week are the afterwords and the forewords to the various editions.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have all that.
Right.
But I guess she's got the afterword for edition 1.
Okay.
So she's going to maybe put together a question or two related to that. And I told her the rest of us would just, we'll pick through whatever is remaining and come up,
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Do our own. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I can't believe it's almost over. This has been a good book. It's been a great read.
It sure has.
Yeah.
I was just bragging yesterday to one of my sons that I would never have read some of these titles that we've gone through had I not joined the group. So I told him it's good to stretch out.
I know that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Are people reading anything these days they want to share before we part? We have 4 minutes.
Are we reading? I'm sorry, what'd you say, Leonie?
Like anything else that you're reading?
Oh yeah. So y'all know I'm always journeying into the world of these little Black girls. So Black girlhood. So I've been reading Renee Watson. She does a lot of Black working class representations of working class Black girls. And so I just find her books so lovely. And so, doing a lot of Renee Watson. And then for theory, just kind of going into Amy Meredith Cox with Shapeshifters, going back to that. And then Nazir Sadiq Wright, Black Girlhood in the 19th Century. So I've been kind of focused in and homing in on the little Black girls. It's been beautiful.
Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting back into fiction, and I have read and really liked Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. That was a good book. Contemporary African American writer. And I just finished The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Also very good.
Oh, what's that about?
It's about two sisters who are from a town in the South in which it's a Black town, but everyone's like light skinned. And they leave the town and go to New Orleans. And one of them decides that she's going to live as a white woman. And the other woman comes back to the town. It's very good. Yeah. I'm reading Deacon King Kong by James McBride. It's so fucking hilarious. It's so funny. It's just funny. It's so funny. I can't get over it.
Okay.
Yeah, Oprah just chose that for her book club.
Yeah, it's really good. It's great. I've never read him, but like it's set like in these like in these projects like in New York. I forget where. Probably Brooklyn. And it's so not like atmospheric is the wrong word, but like you're so like in there. Like you get like all the people, you can like smell all the smells, you can see all the people. It's just like it's really great. And I'm reading this book called Kintu, which is a Ugandan like book based off of a Ugandan kind of like well-known story. So
Oh,
Right.
good reading.
I have a whole collection of like anti-racist stuff, and I just got Policing Black Women. It's the Canadian book by Robin Maynard. I just got White Rage.
I keep passing that by on my suggestions from Amazon. I'm like, okay.
I'm reading these books, so I feel like I have to read them. So
Okay.
Cool. So we're back to the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you, women.
And thank you.
Thank you, women. Have a good week, everybody.
All right, then.
Bye. Thank you, ladies. Stay safe.
You too. Okay.